let's just get started because we have a lot to cover in the agenda today, and Steve has some beautiful nuggets of wisdom to share with us. So I'll just go into a quick overview of what we are going to cover today, so you know all what to expect. So what we have for our agenda today, we'll start with Steve's. So, I'll just give a quick intro and then I'll pass it on to Steve, and Steve will take us into a ride into his journey and how he came into exploring non-duality and all the experiences that he's had. What's his understanding of duality and non-duality? And then going into a little bit of understanding and hearing Steve's perspective on, is it a Maya or is it an illusion? What is all this Leela and dream about? Towards the end, then we will go into an exercise that Steve will lead us into, which is about cultivating awareness. And I've heard about this exercise and practice it a little bit here and there, and it's really profound. So I would really want you to all to stick through the session till that exercise. And we'll have a separate Q&A session at the end of of Steve's talk. But if you have questions coming up as he's sharing, do feel free to use the Zoom chat. And then we'll take these as we go. If it is not too disrupting with the flow of Steve's talk, then we will answer it right there. But if it is, then we will probably take them in the end. So all that sounds good? Wonderful. All right, so so I know most of you already know who Steve is, but a lot of my friends don't know Steve and they've only heard about Steve. So this is my friend Steve, and he is really awesome, as most of the people who already know him. But how I met Steve was I actually had my first plant medicine experience with Steve in 2019. And it was quite a profound, actually, I would say a life transforming kind of an experience for me. In this session, I understood non-duality through an experiential understanding. It was not a concept that I read in the book. It was like a personal experiential experience that I had. So after this initial meeting with Steve, and I was just intrigued by how much Steve knew about the variety of experiences. And I was always curious to get in touch with him, but we did not get a chance to know each other deeper until 2021. So in 2021, I attended Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreat, and I had a significant spiritual experience there. It was kind of overwhelming for me, and Steve re-entered in my life as a friend and guide. He not only shared articles and books and resources that helped me understand my experience and ground back in this reality, but he also would call in frequently to check on me, and his support was absolutely immense for me and my family, who were like grappling with what had happened with me. Steve is very close to all of us, and apart from all the wonderful things and the things, all the groups that he leads, he's also a community person, a big community person. And that's why I always get inspired by him, like how effortlessly he brings people together. Um, and yeah, and in Steve's word, it's all an inside job and we'll all hear about it. So without further ado, I'll stop sharing and I'll pass on to Steve. All right, wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Sarika. Hello, everyone. And I just want to share with you, we're here to talk about a subject called non-duality, which is kind of a contradiction because words themselves are all in the dualist world, and we're trying to talk about something or to something that is beyond our ordinary experience. I don't come here as some sort of guru or expert or a teacher of non-duality. I consider myself to be a fellow student of non-duality. It's something I've done for quite a while, studied and explored. And if I can share a few things that might be of helpful to you in your exploration or in your spiritual journey, then I consider that to be a good thing. We're going to cover some ideas here. Some of these ideas will seem very strange or contradictory to maybe some of the things you believe or know. And I wouldn't discount them because of that. And I'm not saying you should abandon any beliefs you have. Just know that to explore and understand this area, there are some very sort of odd ideas. Let's put it that way. So I want to tell you just a little bit about my personal experience, and then we'll kind of get more deeply into non-duality. I grew up in Japan. My parents were Baptist missionaries, and so I was a missionary kid. And by the time I was 15, I became a closet atheist. I was very disgusted with this idea of God, and here's a loving God who cares for people, and then, but if you don't believe a certain way, then you're punished forever and ever and ever. That doesn't make any sense. Punishment and rewards is so someone does better next time. And if there's no next time, it just makes no sense. So I decided everything in this world is atoms and molecules and little electrical impulses running around in your brain. Um, and all this God stuff or spiritual stuff, get over it. That's nonsense. I had this opinion for about 10 years till I was 25. And then I started to read a book by Carlos Castaneda. And Carlos Castaneda was a student from UCLA. And he went off to Mexico to meet this Mexican shaman. And he began to explore uh, uh, non-ordinary states of consciousness, non-ordinary states of reality. Um, and it began using psychedelics and plant medicine, various psychoactive substances. But later on, he was having these experiences without the psychoactive substances. And he began to realize the psychedelics was just like an opening door. And what he was now exploring had nothing to do with, some chemical that you ingest. It has to do with things of the soul, so things in the non-dual. We could call it the we could call it the non-dual realm, or we could call it the non-physical realm, things beyond the physical universe. And so after reading this book, I decided, well, maybe I've been too hasty. Maybe I shouldn't say yes to spiritual things or shouldn't say no to spiritual things. I should say maybe. Let me look into this and see what. Let me just explore what this is. Um, I do want to talk about my experiences with psychedelics, um, but probably won't say much about it in this session. Maybe in a future session, we can talk a great deal about psychedelics and non-duality and spirituality, oneness. But I've always considered psychedelics not as the main course of a research into spirituality, but sort of an adjunct. It's sort of a helping piece. But the real piece, the real important piece, is the daily practice. Whether you're meditating, you're doing breath work, you're doing journaling, um, it's the daily practice that really gets you there. Um, so we will come back to psychedelics at another time. Um, One of the things that really happened to me some years after I started reading spiritual books and getting interested in what things were is I read an article and it talked about the ordinary human view of life. which was that I'm here in this immense universe, this big, huge place. And by comparison, I'm just like a little tiny speck of dust. And my thoughts and my ideas, it's like unimportant. It's irrelevant. And that's sort of a victim view of life. I can be tossed around like a dry leaf in the wind is tossed around. Um, but this article, as I read more into it, it started discussing the idea that this whole universe that looks so immensely big, um, this big macro place, and my little tiny inside world, the micro place, to reverse the way I saw that. That the real macro place is inside of me. The place to explore is inside of me, and this outside place, by comparison, is really the micro place. And it just shifted my viewpoint. And when I got this idea, um, I shifted away from feeling like the effect of outside influences in my life. I began realizing I'm the cause of my life. I am the captain of my destiny, you might say. And as I improve that viewpoint, I become stronger, I become more capable. And so that was a big shift in my life. And I had another shift later on. This was sometime later, maybe a decade or more later. I had been learning and practicing transcendental meditation, TM, as they called it. And I was enjoying it. I was getting a lot of gain out of it. It was reducing stress and things like that. And one day I had this experience. I was meditating along, and then there was nothing. Um, and I was just like it woke me up. I was just in this state of nothing. There was no me, there was no universe, there was no anything. And I thought, oh, I'm doing it. And of course, at that point, everything was gone. It was back out of that state and back into my ordinary state of awareness. And the whole experience maybe lasted 5 or 6 seconds. It was very short, uh, but I had experienced something. And in telling this to people, some people maybe with not a spiritual view just say, well, you had your eyes closed, so of course there was nothing. Or maybe you just kind of blanked out for a few seconds, and that's what happened. And I would say, no, something else happened, something really amazing. It was a direct experience of something that happened 20 years ago, and I remember it to this day. And every now and then I get glimpses of it. And my meditation has been smoother, and that sort of thing, it woke me up to a certain degree. And so I just want to comment on discussing this area. There is a limitation to words. Words are in the dualist universe, and they're trying to explain something outside the dualist universe. And the description I've read one time, it's like there's two-dimensional worms. If you have worms on a flat surface, they can go this way and that way, and they talk to each other and they have communication. And one day, this one little worm finds a portal. And instead of just a y-axis and an x-axis, just in a two-dimensional way, this worm crawls up into the z-axis, the third dimension. And this worm is amazed, and he comes back down and tells all the other little two-dimensional worms about this, and they don't believe him. They think he's just kind of crazy. But he says, "Yeah, let me show you." But they can't get through the portal, so they think he's a crazy guy. So we're going to be talking about some things that are a little crazy today. And I want to talk to you about the word non-dual. And dual, of course, means two things. The two things could be mind and matter. In other words, what my inner experiences is and the outer experience. And so we see those as two things, but what if those things are seen as just one thing? I want to ask, Sarika, did you send out that video for people to watch? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how many people saw that video? You can just hit your little hand up button, um, or raise your hand. Did anyone else see that?
The Rupert Spira video, yeah.
Rupert, it was a piece by Rupert Spire. Not too many people. Well, I'll tell the story in a bit. And but he talks about that the normal way that human beings in the world see the world is a dualist world, good and bad, right and wrong, inside, outside. We see these dualisms, and we live in this realm in which we navigate through these dualisms. And non-dual is a way to sort of soften these things and bring them together, where good and bad are not two different things, or true and false is not really different. I know that can sound pretty odd to a lot of people, but let's explore that. Let's think about what that is. Um, so let's see. Let's talk about duality first. Uh, Duality is common in most religion, most philosophies. The philosophy of the person on the street. We see things as good and bad, right and wrong. You see somebody helping someone, that's good. You see somebody hitting somebody, that's bad. And that makes sense in this world. That makes, a good sense as a way to navigate things. Uh, Yet non-duality seems to erase that oppositeness. And you might think, well, that's very strange. How does that work? Well, we're going to be talking about that. There's different ways to see different things, and we're gonna take a look at softening these dualities. Um, uh, good and bad is a really interesting one. The more I look at things, I begin to see the real goodness in people, in everyone, really. And you say, well, how can you see the goodness in someone who does really destructive things, really harsh things? And the first thing is I begin to see that, people are basically good inside, but they might do, and under time of stress, they might do things that are harsh towards someone else. Or perhaps they have they have suffered some sort of abuse, and they're sort of playing out that same sort of abuse on others. And they have maybe some sort of PTSD, some sort of trauma that was very difficult in their life. Maybe no one did it to them. Maybe they just fell down or hurt themselves, or, life has its knocks and bruises. And this person, through their trauma, has done something very destructive, say. And so uh, don't judge the person, judge the act that they're doing. That's sort of a way of softening things. Uh, and I began to see that there's ways there's the lens in which I see things. I can see someone do something bad and really condemn them in my mind, really get upset. Or I can just try to find out what's bugging them, or maybe there's something more to what the situation is. Studying the law of attraction with Abraham Hicks. has been very helpful in that regard. Really seeing the goodness in each and everything in life and focusing on that goodness and bringing it more to fruition in my life. I very much enjoyed that. Um, Now, there's one that I want to talk about, one duality called true and false. And it's easy to see true and false. Someone says something and we go look and later that's the way it is. I say that's true. And somebody says something and it's not really that way. Well, that's false. True and false. Uh, it's hard to say, well, if this thing is true, this exactly opposite thing has to be false, doesn't it? So I want you to think about the idea, does are two exact opposites or things that seem to be mutually exclusive, could they both be true? Um, I'd like to demonstrate to you that there are things that uh, they could both be true, and but it depends on the viewpoint from which you see it. Um, the sun rising in the east. You ask somebody, where's the sunrise? And they say, well, the sun rises in the east. And I would agree with that. And then someone else comes along and says, nope, nope, doesn't happen that way. The sun never rises. That's just a trick of your own perspective or your own perception. What's really happening is the Earth is spinning on its axis. The sun's just over there all the time, and the Earth turns around, and the part that's in the dark comes around to the part that's in the light. And I can agree with that too. But are they mutually exclusive? Maybe. If I'm standing on the earth looking east at dawn, I'm going to see the sunrise. And I would say the sunrise is in the east. And if I was out there by the moon or off to the side of Earth, then I could see both the sun and the earth. And if I looked long enough, I'd see that Earth slowly turning around on the dark side, coming around to the light side. So I would say they're both true, but from different perspectives. When I see things through different perspectives. So when you explore the idea of non-duality, I would I would suggest that it's worthwhile to see each and everything we talk about from the perspective of which it's said. And perhaps two things that seem very opposite, maybe they're both true. Maybe they are both true. And so what we see is this is true and this is false. Mm, maybe they're not quite so different. Maybe this is true from this angle and this is true from this angle. Um, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a thing uh, a thing called inductive logic. And probably some of you know inductive logic. There's deductive logic and inductive logic. Deductive logic comes from the general principle, and you can apply it to a specific situation. I know the general principle that 2 plus 2 equals 4. And so if I have two things and someone's about ready to give me two more things, I'm going to say, I know I'm going to have four things, right? That's deductive logic. But what if I don't know that general rule? And let's say I have two oranges over here, and I take two more oranges and bring them over, and I count them up. One, two, three, four. Ah, one, two, three, four. Two apples, I bring over two apples. One, two, three, four. And it doesn't have to be the same kind of thing. Two different things and two more different things. One, two, three, four. I do that enough times and I go, I think the general rule should be two of anything plus two of anything else is going to be four. So that's inductive logic. So I'd like us to think about the inductive logic of applying to what is true and what is false. Maybe these examples that I've given, the sun rising in the east or um, uh, clockwise versus non-clockwise. Oh, I didn't give that example. Here's an interesting one. as a sort of a demonstration. I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to move it like this. And I want you to tell me, is my hand going clockwise or counterclockwise? I'll bet you're seeing my hand is going counterclockwise.
Yes.
But I see my hand as going clockwise. Why? Because you're over there and I'm over here, and the rotating hand is between us. You're on one end of the axis of the rotation, I'm on the other end. And I would like to propose to you, this is true of every spinning object. If you had a spinning top and you say, well, that's clockwise. But if you had that spinning top on top of a glass table and you were to get underneath and look up from below, it would be spinning counterclockwise. And I would like to propose to you that every rotating object in the history of the universe was always spinning clockwise and counterclockwise at the same time, always, no exceptions. And there's an example of one thing by seeing things through a different perspective. It's totally the opposite of what I thought it was before. So I would like to see if we can make a sort of a giant leap, and if we can't, that's okay, but a giant leap of inductive logic to see perhaps everything is true. And I don't mean that in a qualified way. I mean that this may seem very strange or foreign, but maybe from some perspective, everything is true. From the idea of the rising sun or the rotating earth, maybe there's a third thing that's happening. If I'm standing in the middle of the galaxy, maybe something else is going on. It's like from each different perspective, the truth is different. And I'd like us to use that concept um, in looking at non-duality, because there's many things in non-duality that seem really odd or really strange. So I want to just comment a little bit about the world as a dream. But before I do, are there any questions? Anyone have any? If you have a question, you can post it in the chat. Uh, let's see.
No, we don't have any questions or comments, but yeah, they're all good in the flow of.
Oh, someone asked about, is this the 4 stages of spiritual development? No, this isn't about that, but it's sort of related. Okay, so let's see. All right, we'll just continue on here. And I just want to talk about the Rupert Spira video that I sent out. It's about a half hour, but if you watch the first 8 minutes, it's got a beautiful, beautiful definition of non-duality. And I'm just going to go through it real briefly. He talks about a woman who falls asleep in San Jose. And I can't remember the names he used, but maybe her name is Mary. And she dreams she's a person, Jane, in New York. And she sees the streets of New York. In the dream, her inside world, she's aware of that, her thoughts, her feelings, and her ideas. And she sees the outside world. She sees the streets of New York and the people in New York, and she talks to people that are outside of herself. And so there's this dualism. There's the inside world and the outside world. Yet when Mary wakes up, she goes, oh, I wasn't Jane in New York with an inside world and an outside world. Both that inside world and that outside world were just one thing. It was my dream. And so from that perspective, she saw, oh, it wasn't two different things that seemed to be opposite, the inside and outside. It was one thing. And from that idea, he Rupert Spira is pointing out that our life in this world is also one thing. Our inner world and our outer world really have a common basis, and maybe they have a differing manifestation. The outside, you see outside of me, my thoughts and feelings inside are another experience I'm having. But he's pointing out that really they're one thing. This is one thing. And there's lots of different systems, lots of different philosophies that have talked about the dream. Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the book The Four Agreements, talks about the dream of the world, and we're living this dream, but it's not the underlying. There's an even deeper underlying real world. Um, and this brings us to a subject called from India called Leela, Leela. Um, Sometimes it's written Lila. uh, oh, someone's asked the question, who is the one dreaming this world and why? Well, that's a really good question. That's excellent. Some people say this is the dream of God. Some people say, well, this is the dream of the universe. Other people say this is a collective dream. We're all dreaming this collectively. Well, how does it join if we're all these individual parts and we're collectively dreaming the same thing? Well, maybe we're not all these little individual parts. Maybe we're all part of this universal oneness that's dreaming. But to answer that question, I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. That's really part of your own personal exploration. Um, who's the one dreaming the world? Yeah, that's an excellent question. And why? Well, we're just about ready to get into why. And that also is a really good question. So thank you. Let's talk about this subject called Leela. And in the Hindu philosophy, there's several concepts, Maya and Leela. Let's talk about Leela first. And this has something to do with, this relates to William Shakespeare and to Elvis Presley, believe it or not. Elvis Presley has a song where he says, we're all on the stage of life and we're just actors and actresses. Shakespeare said the same thing. Here's his quote: all the world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And this is from a play that Shakespeare wrote called As You Like It. You can read a lot more about it on the internet. So Leela in the Hindu philosophy is called the play of consciousness, sometimes called the play of the world. Um, but it is something from the Hindu viewpoint, it is something we're engaged um, in this world. In other words, all this we see around us is part of what we're co-creating together. And how we're doing is just me creating it, someone else is creating theirs, and they merge, or we're creating it together. There's probably a whole lot to know about this, and some of that area is part of, um, well, I guess I would say that would be something that is up to your own exploration. This is something that as you dive deeper into these things, I can't tell you exactly how you're going to see it or how it's going to be, but it's something to explore. It's something to look into. And so on this stage of consciousness or the stage of the world, we're all players. We're all actors. Um, if I were in a play like, say, King Lear, the Shakespeare play, and King Lear is a very tragic character. He's very kind of depressed, and he has, conflicts with his daughters, and it's very, it's this tragic situation, right? So let's say I go play that part, or some John Smith, just a made-up person, goes and plays that part. While he's in the play, he's this very tragic character, and he's exuding how tragic it is and how depressed he is. But when the play's over, all the actors and actresses, they go out to the pub and they have a pint and chit chat and talk, and all the problems in the play are not there with them in the pub, having fun, joking and laughing and talking. No, they're left in that play. And the idea of Leela is this life, the entire life we're leading is that play. We are in a play, and a play of our own creation, or we've co-created this play together. It's not something forced upon us unless we choose that to be part of the play. Oh yeah, this thing that's happening to me was forced on me, and I'm just a victim. Um, yeah, you can make that part of your play, or you can see your play differently. Now, here's a really interesting thing. There's this guy Stanislav Grof. In fact, he's very famous because he has guided people uh, with 4,500 different LSD sessions. He was a psychiatrist doing experiments for people who were on LSD. This is when it used to be legal, back in the 50s and 60s. And he wrote a book called The Cosmic Game. Fantastic book. I highly recommend it. Um, and he said, um, what if Shakespeare were to play Hamlet? Uh, Now, Shakespeare, he's the scriptwriter. He wrote the play. But now, so as the scriptwriter, he could adjust the play, or he could do whatever he wants to with it. But as the actor, he's supposed to play the role. He's supposed to read the lines. He's supposed to play out the part that was set in for him. And so Stanislav Grof said, what if Shakespeare were to be in the play? He's both the scriptwriter and the actor playing out that script. What if you and I are both the scriptwriters and the actors playing out our play in this life? You sort of rigidly have to do the play, but if you're the scriptwriter, maybe you want to shift things. Maybe you want to change what you decided to play. So that is that's something to think about. So this Leela is like an open door for me. When I experience this concept of Leela, when I get into a situation, I'm just in this world and I'm doing the things in this dualist world that we do as human beings. I consider really both of those worlds are with me, both the dualist world and the non-dual world. And so if I get too stuck in the dualist world, I remember who I really am in spirit. And I really understand I can shift my viewpoint. I don't have to see this as clockwise. I can decide to see it as counterclockwise from a different viewpoint. I don't have to see that the sun is rising in the east. I can see that this Earth is spinning on its axis. I don't have to interpret things the same way I've been in when I get into a tough situation that I've been interpreting. I can see it differently, and it's still true. And to me, the idea that I've come across with non-duality, it's a way of reframing. Are you familiar with the concept of reframing? Uh, Reframing is a psychology concept. Um, if you're home alone and you hear steps coming up to the front door to come in the front door, and you know it's the time that your partner comes home every night, you go, oh boy, how about that? But if it's at a time that's different than when you're partnering with those, you go, who's that coming to my front door? In other words, your reaction is entirely different. You can decide to reframe things in a different way. And so in non-duality, uh, I like the concept of being able to reframe things, to see things through different eyes, through a different lens. When I see things through the dualist lens, oh, that's a good act, that's not so good. When I look through a non-dualist lens, I see the beauty in everything. I see the perfection and the love and the compassion in every action, even action that seems to be negative action or destructive action when I'm looking through a dualist lens. Um, so I'd like to just ask if there's questions at this point. Maybe there's more for me to talk, but I'd like to see if anyone has any ideas or questions.
No questions here, Steve, but I would like to give a time check.
Okay. Okay. Time check. Very good. It's about time maybe to do an exercise. I do want to comment just one more thing about the game of life. Uh, the game of life is often a sort of a victim narrative. There's all these outside influences. I have to protect myself, and I have to, manage things. Um, but it really, the way to manage that, I think, just in short, is by reframing. I guess I've already talked about that part there. Um, I can be a victim, but also that being a victim is also a self-created uh, from the non-dual space. And someone asked the why. I'd like to answer that question. Why, why is there difficulty in life? The question was asked of Ramakrishna once. Why is there evil in the world? And he thought for a minute and he says, to thicken the plot. And what plot? The plot of life. We're living out this plot just like a movie. And if there's not conflict in a movie, it's all goodness and sweetness and light and the whole movie for 2 hours, all this sweet stuff. No one goes to that movie. That movie will lose money. No, there has to be conflict, something that's better, and this thing is not so good, and how they interact. That's the thing that makes a movie. And for us as spiritual beings, who we are as spiritual beings, we're already enlightened. We're already in this beautiful, powerful place. Uh, so to have the game of life, it's for our own entertainment. And you say all these terrible things are for our own entertainment. Yeah, yeah, just like a movie with really tough things happening, really destructive things, and how does the person best it and get past it? It's an entertainment for who we are as spirit, and as spirit, we cannot be injured, we cannot be hurt, we cannot be defeated. Uh, so that's actually the reason I can give you is why there are many different versions of non-duality that talk of many different reasons why. But that's my reason. That's the reason I would give. You may find other things in your exploration. So with that as my answer, let's move on to an exercise, shall we?
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
question from Ashok. I don't know if it makes sense to take it now or do we?
yeah, let's take some questions now, and then we'll have an exercise.
So one question is, what do you think of reframing non-duality to singularity? That's a question from Ashok.
From well, certainly that's a reframe. Um, Singularity, I guess by that you mean non-duality. Uh, that is a reframe because normally in this life we're seeing things through the eyes of duality. Uh, so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
And
Uh,
there's another comment by Rachna, is it's so hard to reframe when you are in thick of things. So any tips there?
yes, absolutely. That's absolutely correction. It's so hard to reframe when you're in the thick of things. Boy, that's absolutely true because this physical universe, I like to think of it as being hypnotic. We're sort of in this hypnotic state to believe everything in here is real. And I believe it's real, but there's also something else that's real from a different viewpoint. And it is oftentimes very difficult when you're in the thick of things to see things. Um, One thing that I do that can help is I sit down and I meditate. And meditate resolves a lot for me. That's one thing. Another thing is take a nap. If you're just so frustrated, you've been frustrated for days and things aren't going right, and sometimes when you nap, the mind relaxes, and the you can sleep. The experience in sleep is a rest. It's a respite from the things of the world. I know sometimes on a day, everything is going wrong. I try to get this done, it doesn't work. I try to get this done. Everything is going wrong. And I go for a walk. As a computer programmer, I had the same experience. Couldn't figure out a problem. I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I'd leave my desk, go for a walk for 20 minutes, and say, oh, why didn't I think of that? I know the answer. Sometimes when you get your mind out of the thing and you rest from it, it can make a real big difference.
Yeah, I have
Uh,
one tool. Like I personally go to Ho'oponopono whenever that happens. And I
yes, Ho'oponopono is one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I can probably just say something about it in just 30 or 60 seconds. It's a prayer. I'm sorry. It's four statements. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. So if you have a difficulty with someone, you can say that prayer. The secret is you're not saying that prayer to the person. You're saying that prayer, a deeper way of doing it is you're saying that prayer to your own higher self. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And when Hugh Lin, a doctor who popularized this, and he resolved a lot of cases out of his mental hospital, not by talking to people, but by doing this process on the person when he's in his alone state. He could even pick up the newspaper and see that there was a suicide bombing on the other side of the world. And he would use these statements, please, the statement, please forgive me. He's asking his higher self to please forgive him for bringing this negative news to him. What was it in me that caused me to cause this other person to act in such a poor and terrible way? Um, what imperfection in me did that? And when he took this full ownership, this full responsibility of living life, um, and his flaws or shortcomings in himself, he took that as his responsibility for what happened to the other person. The other person did. A very sort of mystic and powerful process. I still don't think I've plumbed the depths of that one. It's just an amazing piece. I just want to comment, 4 stages. So, Parit said, beautiful, thanks for the analogies. It's our perceptions and how we're conditioned to see things. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And it's that reframing is what takes you there. Uh, And Sarika said, that video reminded me of the movie Inception. Yeah, that's an interesting movie, isn't it? Where things, when you begin to see things through a different perspective, it looks so very different than what it was. Who's the Dreaming World? We talked about that. Time check, love it. I can write my own story and be in control of my own play. Mind blowing. Okay, very good, Preet. Uh, and the comment, Ho'opono is what comes to my rescue when I'm in the thick of things. Yes, exactly. That's Ho'oponopono is a very good thing. Meditation, some other practice. I go hiking in the woods solo, and that's a good one for me. Ashok has a quick question. What do you think of reframing non-duality singularity? We talked about that. Without dharma, it won't be fun. Without drama, it won't be fun. That's exactly right. Without drama, we won't have a good time. I follow up on Rachna's question. This is Preet again. Sometimes it's hard when you're in this journey, like that single word, and rest, and the rest call you crazy. How to stay on the path and not be impacted? Tips on that. Yeah, let me give you a tip on that. There's a little book. It's called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business, right? What you think of me is none of my business. And sometimes when I've been in this conflict with someone and I'm still processing it, I've been driving down the freeway and I'm saying, what you think of me is none of my business. And what you think of me is none of my damn business. And I keep repeating this as a mantra until I get, okay, there's people, they're going to have their opinions. I have my opinions on other people. And so I need to let other people have my opinions. And I don't want to be run by other people's opinions. If I try to assuage each person that has some bad opinion with me, if I feel I've wronged somebody, then okay. But yes, I think that's a really good way. That phrase, "What you think of me is none of my business, none of my damn business," uh, can really help you like that when people call you crazy or think you're crazy. And I don't keep pushing ideas on people that they're not ready for because they are going to react, and that's my doing. I'm causing kind of a negative situation. I'm causing people to think I'm crazy. They're not ready for some of these ideas. They're living their life, and that's great. So I hope that idea helps. Crazy is the new awesome. Sarika said crazy is the new awesome. Okay. Any other questions or ideas? Or how about if we do a little exercise? Little exercise. Okay. So let's see. Let's do an exercise here. Uh, so just take a nice big breath and a nice slow exhale. Just kind of settle back. Another nice in breath and a nice exhale. And with your eyes open, I would like you to focus on an object nearby. What the object is, it's irrelevant, doesn't matter. Just look at that object for a few moments. Observe it. And now I want you to turn your attention, while you're still observing that object, I want you to turn your attention toward your own awareness of that object. You're being aware of the object. Now become aware of your awareness of the object. and gently let that go. Now, pick a different object in the room around you and become aware of that object. Now, while you're still being aware of that object, put your attention on your awareness of that object. Before your attention was on the object, there was still some attention on the object. Put your awareness on your awareness of the object. Okay, and let that go. In the same way, you can do this experiment at home. And the more you do it, the more you not only are aware of the things around you, but you're aware of your own awareness. And this is a very powerful exercise. There's a little book by Rupert Spira. And he had this little book. The title of it is Being Aware of Being Aware. And he says, this is the most powerful meditation you can do. And all other types of meditation are preparatory to this form of meditation. That's how powerful he considers it to be. Now, I'm not saying you should stop your other meditations, they're all excellent. But throw this one in once in a while if you feel inclined to do that. And I hope this session has been helpful for you. Does anyone want to comment on any last comments um, on that?
I have a question. How to put your own awareness on the awareness of the object?
Well, when you're looking at something, like here's a cup,
Yeah.
my attention is on this object.
Uh-huh.
But so that seems to answer your question, but maybe you have more to ask about that. I'm aware of this object, but I'm also focusing on the fact that I'm aware of the object. My experience, when
Mm-hmm.
I do, I feel more spacious. I start feeling more spacious, more open. But how to do it, I can't tell you, and no book can tell you. You just do it. You put your attention on the fact that you're aware. Let me ask you, are you aware right now?
Um, yes, I think like if there is an object, right, you can you can focus on that, you can see it, and
Yes.
you're aware of that. And the awareness on that project is something like happened in your mind. It's kind of mental. And then you have to shift it like focus on your mental as an object. So it's kind of yeah, I think need some practice.
Yes, it does take some practice, and a very important thing to focus it to understand is all the things you focus on around you are objects. Even if you have a thought or a feeling, those in a sense are objects. Your awareness of it is a different thing. Your awareness of objects is a little bit different than your awareness of your own awareness. Your own awareness is not an object in the same sense. And it's hard to explain, but as you experience it, I think you will find that this is true. But explore it. See what it brings to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Can I add a comment to that, Steve?
Yes, please.
So in my experience, yeah, absolutely. I think directly observing is one thing, and observing who is observing, kind of going inside of yourself, and yeah, who is making that observation, right? So in my experience, I think this has already been proven. There's a physical sensation to it in your brain, and they have these meters, how they, so when you kind of go inside of yourself, and yeah, as you said, it takes practice, but you can start making this observation. There's a physical sensation that you can start feeling as to, wow, now you're observing that object, but you're also observing the awareness that's observing that object. So
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of split. If you're still observing the object and you're observing your own awareness of the object, you're kind of splitting your awareness in two ways, aren't you? It takes a little bit of an exercise to do that. Anyone else?
Yeah, we in our meditation community have started doing these exercise in our Thursday circles. So I know Tina and Preet, you haven't got a chance to it, but I've been posting the videos on these exercises. There was this great PDF that Steve shared earlier about cultivating awareness, and there's some beautiful nuggets of exercises like these, the one that we did, how to become an observer of your own awareness. So maybe try to join it sometime or watch a recording and practice along the way. But yeah.
Good. Any other questions?
No questions, Steve, but just want to say I am feeling so good and I'm feeling so blessed to be part of this session right now. Learned so much and each and every nugget that you passed on to us. So just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that. What I want to pass along, and maybe Sarika can pass it along to you after the session, I'm gonna pass off a list of non-duality systems like Advaita Vedanta, Kashmiri Shaivism, Dzogchen, and a number of non-dual authors that I've found helpful. A lot of these you can find free on YouTube. You can listen to some short or long things, however you like. And you can explore this area. I hope I've given some things that have helped people to explore this in a better way. I thoroughly enjoy exploring it myself, and I hope I've relayed some of that excitement. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone
And
else?
posting the Rupert Spira video that we shared earlier in the chat.
Yeah.
And
Being aware, yes. I'll just tell you right now, but I will have some of these things sent out. Being Aware is a Rupert Spira book. You can buy it on Amazon. The Cosmic Game is a book by Stanislav Grof. You can buy it on Amazon. There is a YouTube called The Cosmic Game by Stanislav Grof. There's actually about a dozen, but I'm going to give you links to the two most important ones. The most important one is almost 2 hours long. I'm now on my 13th or 14th listening. I've enjoyed listening it to so much, and I get more out of it each time. Very, very powerful concepts of non-duality. Very, very enlightening and enjoyable. So thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate it. And I will be sending lists of authors and philosophies that are non-dual that you might like to explore.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Steve. And thanks everyone for participating today. This was truly fantastic.
Okay, namaste, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you so much.